And welcome and good evening to everyone listening to this broadcast this evening. I am your host, Robert Pino, and this is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. Quick update. I want to let everybody know that we have canceled the Ed Grimsley Sky Watch for October 29th. We are actually going to push that back to November. We will make the date available within a week or so we can get the schedule worked out. Tonight's guest, Christopher Holmes, and I'll tell you all about him. But right now we have news correspondent Paul Landris with the news. So stick with us. We'll be right back after this quick break. You can hear Paul, and then we'll get on with the show with Christopher Holmes.
Good evening, everyone. This is Paul Landris with the Whole Agenda Radio Show with tonight's news. Steve Jobs, Apple co-founder and former CEO Steve Jobs, counted among the greatest American CEOs of his generation, died today at the age of 56 after battling cancer and other health issues. His futuristic and cutting-edge insight will be greatly missed. A new study found that plant-based diets are a fundamental solution to our public health crisis, especially with some of the more serious and debilitating illnesses. The physicians at the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute found that the frequency and the cost of many illnesses, including obesity, cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, can be considerably reduced just by switching to a whole food, nutrient-dense, plant-based diet that doesn't include meat or dairy. Sometimes the diseases were reversed just with these diet changes. Many people who practice this type of diet also find that they feel better emotionally and have better energy, which just equates to a better overall quality of life. Dr. Cadwell Ellenstein, who led the study, said, "We are potentially on the cusp of what could be a seismic revolution in health. This will come about not from another pill, another procedure, another operation, or construction of another cardiac cathedral. It will come about when we are able to show the public the lifestyle that will halt and eliminate 75% of these common chronic killing diseases. The most essential component of this lifestyle is whole food, plant-based nutrition. This is foundational for a population that often eats meat and dairy daily, and also one that often has one health problem or another. It's also eye-opening for people who still believe that medical doctors have the health care answers, even though medical doctors are often only required to take one nutrition class, and that class is often about how foods and drugs interact. That seems to be lacking quite a bit. Their dietary changes can reverse and eliminate 75% the most serious problems. And most people get the serious problems after having several smaller problems. Dr. Ellenstein initiated the study to treat seriously ill patients with coronary artery disease, and he did it with the plant-based nutrition. And he generally succeeded in the reversal or removal of their disease. According to Ellenstein, patients lose weight, their blood pressure normalizes, and type 2 diabetes improves or resolves, as does angina, ED, and peripheral vascular and carotid disease. He also added that today's adolescents are but a decade or two away from compounding our healthcare epidemic. Kansas City, you definitely want to stay, not get between this man and his hot sauce. Missouri police say they arrested a man accused of threatening a Taco Bell employee with a shotgun because he did not receive hot sauce with his meal. Jeremy Combs, 30, went through the Taco Bell drive-thru and returned with his shotgun after discovering there were no packets of hot sauce in his bag. They say Combs told him that the item he was holding was a tire iron and not a 12-gauge shotgun. But officers searched his home and discovered a 12-gauge shotgun under his mattress. Combs was charged with illegally possessing a firearm because he is a felon. Some unusual animal facts. Polar bears are always left-handed. The average airspeed of the common housefly is 4.5 miles per hour. There are actually more plastic flamingos in the U.S. than real ones. Bats always turn left when exiting a cave. I know I couldn't live without that one. And donkeys kill more people annually than plane crashes. That's quite comforting there. Okay, Americans and their dogs. Americans love their dogs. Part of the family. There are dog spas, dog washes, and yes, even dog yoga classes. We take them everywhere, to the grocery, out shopping, and for a casual Sunday's drive. They have special hotels and their own place at the parks. Yes, as Americans, we love our dogs. Americans spend billions each year on these wonderful creatures known as man's best friend. Politically correct, people's best friend. We love them, and they love us. They protect us, rescue us, and would sacrifice their lives for us. In fact, God is really an acronym, meaning good old dog. And God spelled backwards is dog. What more could be said about that? Well, as a wannabe guardian, one of these majestic creatures, I would never want to hurt them in any way whatsoever, especially their self-esteem. Well, one city is making sure that this does not happen, that a dog may roam free, safe, and secure, without the fear of being bullied and therefore not be traumatized, creating a lack of self-esteem. So, in Ventura, California, it is illegal to make ugly faces at dogs that are found to be roaming freely about the community. Gotta love Ventura there. And finally, have you ever wondered if someone with multiple personalities threatens to kill himself, then do police consider this a hostage situation? Well, that's it for me tonight. This has been Paul Landers for the Whole Agenda Radio Show. Robert will be right up with tonight's special guest. Thank you and good night.
And welcome back, everyone, to the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I am your host, Robert Pepino. And this evening we have Christopher P. Holmes, who graduated with a BA from Carleton University, Ottawa in 1971, and a PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Waterloo in 1978. He taught at the York University, Downview, Toronto, Ontario, over an 11-year period. Amidst controversy over his investigations of mystical and spiritual psychology, science, and psychic phenomena. His case was never adequately resolved, as he had to move on in his life to support his family and maintain his existence, and could not deal with the slow wheels of justice. After being persecuted out of New York University, Christopher worked as a forensic psychologist for 12 years with young offenders at Blue Water Youth Center, Goodrich, and with adult offenders at Rideau Correctional Treatment Center in Merrickville, Ontario. He co-founded with Anita Mitra 3 centers, the Institute for Psychic and Spiritual Sciences in Maple, Ontario, the Rainbow Center in Toronto, and Zero Point in Ottawa Valley. In 2003, he left the Ontario Ministry of Corrections to further his research and writing and teaching while working under the 0 Point logo. In 2006, he woke up to the fraud of 9/11, as we all did, ladies and gentlemen, which most dramatically changed his life and inner self-awareness and the focus of his work. Christopher, welcome to the broadcast. It's great to have you here with us.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. It's odd to remember that history.
Well, I understand that, but, you have a lot of credentials that need to know who you are, so they understand your background and what you're about and who you are. It's very, very important. And as I and as so many other people, Christopher, woke up to 9/11, the complete and total fraud, the deception, the lies, the tyranny that this government and the other governments have created around the world is disgusting, to say the least. I mean, I have a few choice words I could use, which I would never use over the air. But nonetheless,
Yeah.
These people are bombastic in nature. They are so lewd, crude, and over the top that it's all finally coming to light, and we are truly seeing these monsters for what they are, Christopher.
Wow, exactly. You described it most beautifully. I often quote J. Edgar Hoover's quote. He says, "The individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists." And it's so absolutely true. And you wake up to 9/11, and then you realize the involvement of our governments and the involvement of the media, and you realize more and more how these people have twined every aspect of our society, like the health care and the food production and environmental care, and every aspect of our society has been, they've set up their network through the upper echelons of these groups. It's unbelievable, but it's a conspiracy so monstrous. Most people can't really believe it exists, because most people, are generally good-hearted and just want to live in peace and have a productive life and such. So it's pretty horrifying to wake up to it, and you see so many people there. They can't out of fear, and they're so massively conditioned and hypnotized, especially by the media.
Well, it's the Orwellian 1984 nightmare come true. There's really no other way of explaining this. I think they just basically read his book and say, "Hey, this guy's got a great idea. Why don't we just run with it?"
Yeah, well, it's a fulfillment of the protocols of the elders of Zion. You see the kind of psychopathy in that document, and how they state their intentions there, and it's hard to believe, but there really are groups of, these elites who believe they have some kind of inherent right to commit genocide against other people, or, steal their wealth and plunder them and murder them and destroy their properties and so on. They actually believe they have some kind of inherent right to that. In our culture, most people have been led to believe the problem is radical Islam or Muslims, but the whole time it's not. Instead, it's these Zionist Talmudic Jews and other elite classes. How it ties into the Jesuits, and it's so tied interpenetrates the whole of our society and our leaders. It's so massive. It's so massive.
I know. Christopher, I didn't mean to cut you off, but look, who owned the Twin Towers complex? Man's name, Larry Silverstein. Okay? Now, you want to talk about Zionism?
Yeah.
And collusion?
Yeah.
This guy is a multi-billionaire who colluded with our government and who knows who else in order to perpetrate this grand and gigantic hoax upon the American people and destroying the lives of thousands of people. Not just the ones who died, but all the ones who have suffered from that day forward, who have lost their loved ones, they'll never be returned to them.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and you see, I'm sure you've seen Aaron Russo's film From Freedom to Fascism, where he talks about his meeting Nicholas Rockefeller, who seemed to know of this and said something was going to happen, and people were going to be searching for a terrorist in the caves, and they wouldn't find them because they didn't even exist. And have you ever heard that clip in Aaron Russo's movie?
I saw that back, in 2008. It was a long time ago when I saw that.
What I think it shows is like Silverstein, he's just one person, and I think the motives for 9/11, they destroyed all the criminal files in Building 7, and they destroyed the Naval Accounting Office, where they just reported missing $2.4 trillion the day before. There were multiple purposes for that day's event. They'd been trying to bring the towers down for years and had been denied permits for it. So I guess they took it into their own hands. And yeah, it's incredible what these people would do. And then to foster so systematically and intentionally through all the corporate media, all these lies. And how I used to think the media kind of reported the news, and now more and more, I see the role of the media. They actually stage events, and they're pre-scripted when things are going to happen. And that's in my article that I wrote entitled Fabled Airplanes. I argue that not only were the planes hitting the towers video fakery, but furthermore, the eyewitnesses were faked and obvious liars, deceptive. So my studies of the September Clues series about the media coverage of 9/11 events led me to the obvious conclusion they had all colluded together and they ran the whole day's events just like you'd run a Hollywood movie. So to realize the extent of the corruption of the media and how all this agenda of these elites has been so intelligently and systematically incorporated into the media, from children's programming to especially the news.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, their behavior has been, I can't call it a behavior. I call it a psychopathic or, psychopathic behavior, but more like a psychopathic, insidious view of how they view us, what they call us, and we're empty vessels, useless eaters, just expendable containers, whatever words you want to use. This is how they view us, and this is how they justify the ends to their means, which is psychotic nature. You being a psychologist, a PhD in psychology, clinical psychology, you've run across this many times, I'm sure, in your line of work.
Well, actually, really not. In my work in prisons, most of the men and younger adolescents, they weren't psychopaths. And once you knew them and you kind of understood the history of kind of family abuse and chemical drug use, et cetera, you could understand how they were led to do the kinds of things they did. And they're in a wholly different class than the psychology of the elite. You don't occasionally you find a psychopath in the prisons. At least I worked in the Ontario system, so it was less serious sentences, 2 years less a day. So it was less serious offenders. But like real psychopaths are very rare. Whereas these people, like the world elite, they're in a class of their own as psychopaths. They have no conscience. They in a way they're heartless. They've lost their heart or soul. They sell their souls in a way. They're controlled by lower motives, governed by the lower centers. Their drives for money, sex, power. Different ones is different drives. For some, it's all the sexual perversion and pedophilia and prostitution, right, and so on. Others, it's the material greed and the wealth. Unbelievable, these people would make pigs feel ashamed, you know.
Well,
and
they
then
definitely
other
lead
people,
an amoral,
like Henry
sense of
Kissinger.
life.
Henry Kissinger, who says, my aphrodisiac is power. He's like
right,
an impotent little man who kind of, these people are in a class of their own, and they don't have conscience. As you say, they see us as goyim or cattle or expendable. And if they get rid of us, then they can have further wealth themselves. It's hard for most people to imagine that. I hadn't even seen that in the prisons. Those
right,
guys had more heart than these guys, and there was something still. When I worked in prisons, I developed an original approach called the awakening of consciousness and the heart of criminal offenders. Because I think we've made major mistakes and think human being only has a mind and a body, but no heart and soul. And, offenders generally, you can appeal to them on a certain level and they still have conscience and they know what they've done is wrong. These people are so conditioned from early childhood into these, very elite families and then into elite schools. And I think they undergo a lot of emotional trauma and deprivation themselves, so they and then they're fed all this false egoism and learn to consider themselves a class apart people.
Well, so sure, they have to be conditioned themselves in order to take their predecessor's place.
Yeah, and the conditions.
Excuse me, I'm sorry about that, Chris.
The conditions of the schools and such. Sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Oh no, I was just clearing my throat. But the bottom line is, look at the circle that has been running in just our puppeteer front view government. It's all the same faces, year in and year out. So that alone should awaken people to know that how this hoax has been perpetrated, because it's the money behind these elitists who have been able to perpetrate this giant fraud on the American people without the American people being any wiser. Not just America, of course, Canada and Mexico and most of the other third world countries who've been these poor people have been so beaten by their government that they can't fight back physically or mentally. And this is what's happened. And, this here in the United States and Canada, we still have a fighting chance to beat these people at their own game, because I think there's a great awakening taking place right now, Christopher, especially what's going on with the Anonymous and Occupy Wall Street.
Well, I absolutely agree. I think there is a great awakening, and that's why I'm here talking to you, because I've been part of that for the last years in trying to do whatever I can to wake people up, to what's happening in the world and the extent of the criminality of our government. We're essentially run by an international criminal cabal or a global crime syndicate. And I don't know if you're familiar with what I formulated as the 0-point proposal for humankind, which is, if you read the anti-terrorist legislation, then if it says if there are groups which for political or ideological causes commit some of the following acts that can cause death or serious injury or spread diseases or any of these things, these people can be defined as terrorists. So they've put into legislation articles which could be brought to bear upon themselves and their assets seized worldwide for their crimes against humanity, for their responsibility for the different wars, the overthrow, and all these events. So I have this concept of, if we could reestablish international law and apply the anti-terrorist legislation, you would just wipe Zionism off the map. You put these people in the FEMA camp in the States. You can call it the Rockefeller Center. And they can be elite
I like
together.
That.
And you surround them with dogs to protect the American public, since your police and intelligence community are all such cowards. Military.
Well, wouldn't it be more purposeful and more meaningful as turning these FEMA camps into re-education camps to re-educate them?
Well, that's really true. I totally agree with that. And that would be my attitude. They need to be in these camps for public protection. Their schemes, and they need to be there, and they need to have all their crimes exposed to people and be held accountable. All the sickness they've spread through our societies, like through the inoculations and experimental drugs and their suppression of scientific research proves the dangers of their drugs and such. It's become so corrupted. So many Americans have been touched in one way or another by these people, with your autistic children and cancers and all the problems, respiratory problems, illness. These people have created diseases, and they suppress all the natural cures, and they've created all these petrochemical pharmaceuticals which have all kinds of adverse effects. And they've done this for generations. And it's been such a pervasive influence. Look at the chemtrails. This is just absolutely unbelievable that we essentially have a terrorist organization which is spraying us from the sky with toxic chemicals. The people are getting Alzheimer's, all kinds of respiratory illnesses. It's poisoning the land, it's poisoning the water, it's poisoning the air. And this is being done to us all over North American NATO. This is a form of terrorism. This is slow biological kill. This is damaging people's health. So these people need to be, these people all need to be face these charges publicly and answer to the public. I always felt if you had FEMA camps like that, you could put people in, and if people would come forth, tell the truth about all they did and explain why they did it and really have remorse and go through that process, then those people might be released again.
Well, and you made some amazing points because, of course, the chemtrails, we were sprayed early in the morning. So as I was leaving the house going to my daytime job, Christopher, I could still see the remnants of the chemtrails. So I don't know if they've been doing them very late at night where they dissipate by the time morning comes around, and maybe they just sprayed late or something. But I know that the spraying is still going on. And, of course, Monsanto, hand in hand, created aluminum-resistant genetically modified seed.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they use their Roundup for the pesticide itself, which is, of course, again, works hand in hand with the aluminum-resistant genetically modified organism. Yeah. Okay, and then, of course, they put fluoride in our water. And what is fluoride? Well, fluoride is a byproduct of aluminum smelting. It's a deadly toxin to human beings, and yet people just don't even seem to understand, and this is one of the reasons I'm doing this program, and as well as why you're speaking out and you do your own show to awaken the American people and the rest of the world to this slow kill process that they are using. Agenda 21, the Codex, and it goes. It's the crazy thing. It goes on and on. I mean, every facet of this compartmentalized fascist movement regime that they have put into place through these multinational companies is how they've been able to perpetrate this grand scheme. And the biggest perpetrators of all this, the heads of the cabal, is of course the fake money printers.
Yeah, and Zionists and I see the Illuminati kind of seem to centered in London, England, and the international banking community, and it seems to involve other elite families. Like when you look at the Bilderberg list, you have the Queen of Holland and the Queen King of Spain, and it's an international global crime syndicate. It's shocking. I thought Monsanto's definitely has to have their own FEMA camp where they can eat only genetically modified and Monsanto's products, and otherwise I think all them. See, in my 0-point proposal, you'd seize all the assets. Like Monsanto's would be wiped out. You'd just seize all their assets, and then most of the people would retain the job because then you'd need their professional and expertise and such to try to deal with the problems created by their generations of destroying our food stock.
You're right. Christopher, can you hold on to that thought for just a moment because we're coming up on a break. Everybody, you're listening to Christopher Holmes from 0 Point. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pino, and we'll be right back after this commercial break. Stick with us.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. And gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
Address the skeptics listening to talk radio. You hear multiple commercials on products that make you feel better and help you lose weight, but you don't believe it. Companies come and go. People, I understand. You really are desiring a product that works, but you're tired of getting burned with substandard quality, gimmicks, 3 to 6 month get-involved contracts. Life Change Tea is different. I speak for Life Change Tea because I lost 25 pounds, lowered my blood pressure, and blood sugar levels. I sleep well at night, knowing Life Change Tea customers are receiving real product that works, customer service, and customer satisfaction. So here's my spiel. Test us, try us, and receive results. And if you don't try us, that's okay. And if you do, you'll be a happy tea customer getting healthy. So order now. Call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Or you can log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. In my opinion, you won't be sorry.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pino. We've been speaking with Christopher Holmes, psychologist who awoke to the 9/11 fraud and all the other terrorist act created by governments worldwide. This is something that I thought I would never see in my lifetime, a hoax so large that just thought that it was my imagination, but obviously this is truly, really happening. I hope everybody's awakening to this. And for anybody who'd like to ask my guest questions, call number is 1-888-747-1968. Christopher, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were just in the middle of something. Please continue.
I did want to go back a little bit. I mentioned the 0-point proposal and the applying the anti-terrorist legislation to the people who are the real terrorists. Like, forget Osama bin Laden and his reindeer. Okay, they didn't take down the towers. Okay, there's an international global crime syndicate. If we could wake people up to realizing that these are the terrorists, seize their assets worldwide. The implication of this is that it would pay off the national debt of every country on earth, which is what you would do. You would just wipe out every national debt on earth because it's all owed to these people. Okay? And then what you allow is you allow all countries, especially third world countries which have been so exploited, to again take control of their own resources within that country. So they own their own oil again, and they own all the Rockefeller equipment and everything left there. That's all theirs for their people. And the people who own the diamonds aren't going to own the diamonds anymore. They're going to be in a FEMA camp in England, another FEMA camp. And the people of South Africa, they take the wealth of their own land and allow people around the world to kind of regain control of the assets of their own countries. And there would be such unbelievable wealth throughout the world. Like all the tragedies of humankind, the people on the street living in tents and, starving and sickness of all kinds and the wars, this tragedy all around the world and unnatural weather phenomena, all these things are created by these people. We've never known what life could have been without the insidious satanic influence of these people. And really, I think we're faced, humankind on this planet, we're going to have a Luciferian satanic New World Order system where they're going to commit massive genocide against people and massive sickness and population reduction around the world. Or we're going to imprison these people and truly move into a new age. and bring out all these inventions which have been suppressed, like water cars and cold fusion devices in your homes by power, and there can be just such wealth for people on this earth. People have no idea how much these people have retarded the evolution of our society and the evolution of humanity, even down to their corruption of the educational system and the sciences to diminish human beings and prevent people from understanding the mysteries of psychic phenomena and spiritual psychology and such. So I think if we see it happening in the world, is this kind of global awakening. People are realizing what these bankers have done, like the extent of their fraud and crime. All these people, we need to see that these are the true terrorists of our age. And then I think we need to demand that our police and our military actually fulfill their oaths of office instead of being such cowards. I mean, you look at the CIA and the FBI and all your agencies, and they can't solve 9/11. Like, is this some kind of joke? We're the cops of New York. They're out fighting these protesters. Oh, big hero cops. And they had 300 emergency workers murdered in their city, and they're out, hassling and assaulting protesters. They're such cowards. There's such perversion and cowardice among the military and intelligence community. It's shameful. I don't know how people live like that.
Well, Christopher, I totally agree with you. I mean, I kind of view this as children in grown-up bodies, more or less. These suits on Wall Street, the suits, the people who fill those suits in Washington are children playing in human bodies. We have to come to an understanding that it's time to put childish things away, for one. Now, I'm just talking about society in general. We need to grow up. If we're going to transform ourselves and become a type 1 civilization where we can traverse the universe and meet our brothers and sisters who are probably just waiting out right outside, our outer atmosphere, waiting for us to grow up, to welcome us to the galactic community, we need to resolve this situation ourselves. Everybody's always looking for help from everybody else. When are people going to realize that the help is within ourselves? We need to do things for ourselves. I mean, look at the laws they've created to justify the means so people never have to pay a real penalty for their behaviors that they perpetrated on so many people. But, Chris, we have a caller on the line. Would you like to take a phone call?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. It looks like we have Brad from Minnesota. You're on the air.
Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
Good, Brad.
Good. So I'm just wondering, are you expecting the worst of the worst, or what is it you're trying to point out?
I really don't know. When I woke up, I had these kind of profound higher dimensional type mystical experiences, and thought I experienced certain revelations to me, which and I felt by 2012 these people are going to be starting to be put in FEMA camps, that it's going to turn on them. That's always been my inner feeling, because from then to now in my life has been kind of a crazy life, trying to do things and have effect. And I've always felt that by next year. And I didn't believe in 2012. I believe that was an Illuminati fabricated end date, try to bring about some closing. But I think, again, I felt it needs to be turned on them. We'll have a new age when they're in their camps.
Okay.
So Brad, this came to me in these revelations. I felt that they had shot themselves in the foot. They were going to be brought down and have their own laws applied to them throughout the world, and would have a whole new era of wealth and discovery and health. But but I don't know. And you know, I grew a good garden this year. I processed over 100 quarts of tomatoes and other things. You know, we
That's
all got to
fantastic.
look after ourselves, and it's a survival time.
Yeah.
Well, Brad, let me ask you something. I mean, do you feel that we are going to supersede what these monsters have created? I mean, are you hopeful?
No, I know we are going to take over their taking over. I know the light always shines in darkness.
See, and I'm in that camp too. See, I believe that. There's just no way. And, you know, I'd like to say this, Chris, that I always use this terminology, and I call us the 3%ers, because it only takes 3% of the population of any country to affect real change, to supersede anything that's been done by anybody. And I think we're pretty much almost there right now. What would you say to that?
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, I hope that, you know, police and intelligence community, that people are talking among themselves. Occasionally you hear things out, like I heard at one point someone say that there were elements in the Pentagon who were sick of the whole situation and about to act. You hear these comments, and I don't know if there's truth to them or not. You know, I pray that there is, and I don't know. You know, we're in a really precarious situation, and it's happening now. Like, people are dying and getting sick all around the world with the crimes being perpetrated against them from people. So we're in times of wickedness with this. But my belief is it can still be turned around.
Well, I agree.
But we could
Brad?
also face huge nightmare scenario. I think it's still possible.
Hey, Brad, do you have anything else to add?
Yes. Believe in the light, and there's nothing else to worry about. The light.
Well, it's interesting what you say, Brad. Like, when I woke up to all this, because first I woke up 9/11, I just saw loose change, but then I realized something was serious, and then you wake up, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. But I went through a period, during that period of awakening, I experienced absolutely profound states of bliss and rapture, and felt absolutely illumined with light, and I had all these profound mystical experiences. And I know in myself and in my heart that I am a multidimensional being, that I persist beyond death, and that's my area of expertise, is understanding those things. So in a way, like when that happened, in a way that being awakened in that way, and I know the light is there, but then it still comes, what are we going to say on our deathbed if we're asked, well, what did you try to do? What, you will watch TV and watch men playing games with balls and drank beer? You know, you had a life.
You're separating two things. Mm-hmm. You're separating the light from your understanding to your understanding of the simple things. I'm not exactly sure what you're saying. I was trying to say I experienced that, what you were saying, we have to know that there's light there. So I know that myself, and that's given me courage through the past years to do the things I have done to try to combat this and wake people up and do something. I agree.
You know, in a way, I think of myself as a spiritual warrior, and there are other warriors out there, truth warriors. Even if you're agnostic, there are still warriors out there who want to take back our country.
I agree, and I think I'm a warrior too, and that's why I called in.
Thanks, Brad.
Well, I'd say we're all spiritual warriors, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yep.
Because we have been awakened to this giant fraud, this giant disgusting fraud, this that's been perpetrated on humanity. People like ourselves who decided to do something about it, not sit in our duffs, but get up, walk to the mountaintop and shout from the top of our lungs. People wake up. You don't understand what's being done to you. So we are spiritual warriors. We live in the third dimensional plane, but we all live in a duality also, because we have our physical body, and then we have our soul conscious spirit, which drives this container.
Well, there's a difference, though. There's you can separate your current understanding, and you can understand your current understanding, but it's not going to be the same as understanding the whole understanding. I'm sorry if I lost you.
Well, I'm just listening.
Well, there's so much to understand, and I've always seen in my life, like, having different periods of enlightenment and illumination. It's like you have one level of awakening and understanding and insight, but then there's another and another, and it gets more whole over time. It's an evolving process. I think the idea that in a way we are spiritual warriors, and it's because we still have heart. So in a way, we feel compassion and for those people who are suffering because of the terrible things being done, like the wars and sickness and so on. And courage, the word courage, comes from French, which means la cour, for the heart. Courage implies having a new heart. And I think those of us that are trying to do something like it, it's because we have heart, because we feel this is a struggle of righteousness in the world. Like, it's so morally outrageous what has been done morally. I mean, you look at the history of the United States over the last decades, and you've mass murdered tens of millions of people around the world, all the time deceiving the American public and presenting it that you're spreading democracy, and all the wars based on lies, all these deceptions. Now you've established this worldwide global network of U.S. military, 140 countries, and you can kind of murder people 10 times over in all different kinds of ways. It's so
800
insane,
bases
all
or
based
so
on
worldwide.
lies.
But to me, heart means a symbolization of an object, of something that you're grasping onto.
Well, my main book is called The Heart Doctrine, and what I explain in that book is that I think science has perpetrated a fraud on the Western society for the past century in assuming that human consciousness is produced by the brain and that it's centered in the head. I call that the head doctrine. Whereas in all the esoteric psychologies I've studied, yogic teachings, Sufism, Kabbalah, Judaism, Christianity, the secret doctrine, all these, they elaborate the heart doctrine, that human consciousness and the I experience in a living being originates out of the higher dimensional physics of the human heart. That is how we are ensouled by spirit through the heart.
And that's why you named your books the way you named them.
Well, that's why I use the term the heart doctrine. Actually, that's from a quote from Madame Blavatsky, who writes, the doctrine of the I is for the crowd. Doctrine of the I is the Illuminati doctrine of the third eye, the eye of dogma in the pyramid. The doctrine of the heart for the elect. Great Sifter is the name of the heart doctrine. So I believe that this heart doctrine is this higher dimensional spiritual teaching that's been denied to humankind, but has been there in our religion.
What do you mean? What did you say? Denied?
Denied, suppressed in the schools because people were taught that like psychology. I studied psychology. It still is defined as the science of behavior and the mind.
They think there's a mind in the head and it's attached to a body. They don't think there's a psychology of the human heart. They don't think there's a soul or spirit. So in modern educational system for the last century, people have learned nothing. You learn nothing of what spiritual psychology involves. So people have this vast spiritual ignorance of what the spiritual teachings really say, even of their own religions.
That says so much. Wow. Yeah, I agree. Wow.
The heart doctrine is the teaching that unites people of Jewish faith, Christian faith, Islamic, Buddhist, Hindus. The heart doctrine is in all the sacred teachings of humankind. The way you know God or you know yourself is through the heart. Self-realization is defined as the dissolution of the false mind into the lotus of the heart. And that's the beginning of higher states of consciousness. The awakening of the I within the heart. So this is the teaching I feel could unite. See, we need to unite people, and people who realize the problems isn't between Christians and Muslims and Jews. It's not. It's between people who are upright of heart versus people who have sold out their souls and are under lower satanic and Luciferian control.
And Christopher, I would say that vibrational frequencies play a very dramatic role in what you just said, because the people who are more spiritually uplifted vibrate at a higher frequency as compared to those who live in this, plane of the
third plane,
the physical plane of the house, the car, the money, the beautiful wife, the vacations and whatnot. So they vibrate at a lower frequency, and maybe they just don't understand or can't see that higher vibrational frequency of the spiritualness of our soul conscious mind, our heart.
Yeah, they're not awakened in the heart, and I absolutely agree. It does have to do with frequency, and most people are on a very low. They're in such a deadened state, deadened especially by the media and all these false impressions and the world of the mind. They're so caught up in the world of their mind and things that have no real value. Yeah, it is a matter of frequency. But there are also people among these elites, like they attain lower level powers, magical powers and psychical powers. Blavatsky calls it, says that they can master the astral light, the levels of the astral light. But there's a higher that's below spiritual, because the psychical worlds are separate from the spiritual. Then ultimately there's a divine world. So they master the psychical world, so they themselves can have a lot of energy and intelligence and power.
If you're above that, it shouldn't matter.
Say again?
If you're above that, it shouldn't matter.
If you're above what? Sorry.
Above the lower level realizations.
Then what shouldn't matter?
It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't have any effect on you.
Well, you would experience yourself completely differently and have different state of awakeness, and you'd have different capacity of will, capacity for love, and capacity for mystical experiences. You can awaken these kinds of powers and faculties in ourselves.
I would say one thing, going back to just Christ's teachings, which were nothing but pure spiritual teachings. He says, the thief would come to steal a garment in the middle of the night, and one of his apostles would say, well, he's taking it. And he says, if he needs it, let him have it, because his needs are greater than ours. Basically, in that sense, what I'm understanding is that, Brad, I think, is what you're saying is that us, the more enlightened, who are very awakened to what's happened, say, let them keep it because we're above all this. Am I correct?
Well, are you asking Brad, I guess?
Well, yeah, that's what I was asking, because I think that's what he was trying to ask you,
pretty much what I was saying, but I was saying it in a different way.
I think these people need to be brought to justice, and
yes,
they're trying
they will
to expose.
They will be brought to justice.
Within life. I believe there's justice afterwards through cosmic processes, but I think what we need is the exposure of this to people to wake them up. Because if justice were ever to be brought back and you actually used all your media to start educating the American public and telling the truth about it, you could have such mass awakening through that process.
You know what? It's more than media. It's awakening.
Well, it absolutely is, but it's a way of connecting across to many people, and I think you could have a wave of rapture and enlightenment and love that would spread through the world if you could carry it forward.
Oh, Christopher, you brought up something very poignant, that media, yes, will bring people together, but I would say this, that I think this great awakening has taken place is because we have the greatest mass media ever designed for the population of the planet, which is the Internet. This is the most essential tool for us to use to help other people awaken, because technology and information is instantaneous now compared to the propaganda media networks who are, first of all, being really ignored by a large majority of people because they understand that they're starting to understand, that the only real information that they're going to get is through the Internet, through the very smaller publications, or direct information from somebody who's witnessing a situation and can report that directly. So I think this is our true format for awakening the people. I don't even consider the propaganda media press a threat at this point anymore. And I think people look at them as just, the talking heads for the immediate government that we're looking at through the shadow government. But Brad, if you would like to stay on, you're more than welcome to. We're getting ready to come into a break here.
Okay.
And we've been talking with Christopher Holmes. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and we'll be right back after this commercial break. Everybody stick with us.
All right.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. And gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
Address the skeptics listening to talk radio. You hear multiple commercials on products that make you feel better and help you lose weight, but you don't believe it. Companies come and go. People, I understand. You really are desiring a product that works, but you're tired of getting burned with substandard quality, gimmicks, 3 to 6 month get-involved contracts. Life Change Tea is different. I speak for Life Change Tea because I lost 25 pounds, lowered my blood pressure, and blood sugar levels. I sleep well at night, knowing Life Change Tea customers are receiving Real product that works, customer service, and customer satisfaction. So here's my spiel. Test us, try us, and receive results. And if you don't try us, that's okay. And if you do, you'll be a happy tea customer getting healthy. So order now. Call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Or you can log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. In my opinion, you won't be sorry.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, and we've been talking with the incredible Chris Holmes, clinical psychologist, who's woken up to the complete fraud worldwide, just as we all have, and we're all trying to do something about it. Now, for anybody else who'd like to call in, the number is 1-888-747-1968. And Christopher, I left off with that greatest media. The gift that has been given to us is the Internet. I mean, a lot of this wouldn't be possible, or we'd have to go to a traditional style broadcast, which is corrupted by the mainstream media because they're owned through these multi-conglomerational corporations who, of course, stifle our First Amendment right in order to get the truth out.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, since I've woken up in 2006, I've been on the Internet all the time, listening to the truth networks, and you develop more and more understanding, and over time it just comes together more and more. That's why we are now developing a community where we can talk at the level that we're talking at, and we both have an understanding of what that involves. And we have this agreement that there is a global crime syndicate, and all the specifics of it, there's still many things to study and understand about it. It's a huge mystery. I most in my own writing, I like to compare our situation to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, because book two, like the forces of evil have kind of taken over the world, and they're breathing in human types, creating destruction and destroying all the natural life and so on. Then you have the two towers, which to me symbolizes New York City. And then the book three is the return of the king. And to me, what that symbolizes is the return of righteousness to the world. Like who of our leaders on an international scale shows any nobility of heart? There isn't a one.
Well, they're heartless.
Pedophiles, parasites, psychopaths. It's disgusting.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, you remember the scandal with Boys Town? And that was directly related to the White House. At that time, I believe, it was President Reagan. And they covered that whole situation up with bringing in these young boys from Boys Town to commit these pedophilic acts, which was just absolutely disgusting, and it disappeared in the news instantaneously. And that's just one small example of the fraud and the amoral acts of these governments. Because I just don't say this government, I say all governments.
Especially among like senior military levels and within NATO ranks, is really important, because I've heard reports of like the NATO, they assemble outside of the Pentagon, different hotels, and they're provided with boys or men, and they're called the bottoms. And this is rampant. It's alleged that David Rockefeller provided underage boys to members of the UN. The kind of rampant pedophilia, prostitution, homosexuality, and then these people find out that they've been videotaped. Isn't that clever? I wonder who would think of doing that.
Sure, Brad, go ahead.
Okay, what do you both think about Ron Paul? I am trying to find out any negative things about them, but I can't find any.
Ever since learning of Ron Paul, I remember the first time he just said, you know, American wasn't supposed to be an interventionist country. This isn't what our Constitution's about. And he'd close down the military and bring the military home from around the world. Let your American men and women grow up in America and have their health and life, you know, and bring them home. And he'd disband the CIA. And I remember he was saying this years ago.
Is there something wrong with that, or?
He can't speak the truth about 9/11. I think we have to just accept that. He knows the truth of 9/11. Couldn't possibly not. It's so obvious. You have to be an idiot.
Okay, so you're a 9/11 believer?
Sorry?
You're a 9/11 believer?
Oh, no, absolutely no doubt. The whole thing was staged. There were no airplanes, the whole thing was staged. It's such a massive deception.
Well, there was airplanes. Have you ever looked at another website? I can give it to you, but...
Well, I mean, I've looked very closely at the September Clues video series, which is all the footage offered of the airplane of the day of 9/11, and it has analysis of all the amateur video turned in. And it's all fakery. It's all fake. I haven't seen one that I consider authentic. And what they do is they negate each other, because if they were you see some which are so obvious fakes. Do you know what the nose out shot is? Do you, Brad?
Not a clue.
Robert?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
This is a shot from the Fox News helicopter that had a panoramic view of New York skyline. There was no airplane out for miles to the right. And then they do a 7-second zoom up of the two towers, one of which is burning. And then when they're right in close of the tower, all of a sudden you have an airplane appears that it's on screen for 2 seconds, and it moves across on a horizontal plane, and then you see its nose stick out the other side of the tower, as though the fellow did a pixel analysis of the nose going into the tower and the nose going out of the tower, and they're exactly the same. What it showed is that it was faked with a video overlay that they moved too far along on the horizontal axis, so it made it look as though the plane went right through the building and stuck its nose out, which it couldn't possibly have done. The whole thing was fake.
Right.
And if you start seeing fakery in some of their videos, it invalidates the other videos, because if there had been a real plane, they wouldn't have had to fake any of it.
Right.
There were no planes on 9/11.
You know who also validates what you're saying is John Lear. John Lear was a pilot, and of course his father was the inventor of the Lear jets. And he basically says the same exact thing. He says there were no planes. Now, as far as I'm concerned,
I did a 2-hour interview with Jim Fetzer on it, and he believes there's no planes, and it was a very good interview. I played some of my forensic script analysis of the witnesses showing their fraud and deception.
What I was going to say was absolutely 100%. The Pentagon was hit by a missile. I don't know what kind of missile, but it was hit by a missile, and no one can tell me any different, because if a plane would have went to that Pentagon, which, first of all, is completely impossible, implausible. I've heard many pilots say what that plane would have had to do in order to hit that building was a complete possibility. My whole theory, and especially in the Pennsylvania crash and, of course, the Pentagon, were missiles. 100% period. And that's my belief, and will never change unless somebody gives me absolute proof of footage that there were planes hit that building, because there's no way it was. Impossibility.
Well, I believe that even the airplanes that we saw on 9/11 were fake in the media studio, and I urge people to look seriously into that and look at the video coverage of it and see how phony it is. If you look carefully, you see it. It's like a joke. After you see it enough,
Can I interrupt you? Have you ever heard of Abel Danger?
Yes.
Well, they're the ones that investigated 9/11, and apparently they know certain things. I'm just asking if...
Well, if they know certain things, they certainly haven't come out with anything, because the final report from the 9/11 Commission was a complete hoax and a fraud and a farce.
Yes, I know, but Able Danger was one of them that was excluded from the final report. And
well, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Like, it's so obvious 9/11 was a fraud. I think we want to move on a little bit to explore some of the other...
I agree. Yeah. 9/11 was a fraud in one way or another, no matter how you look at it.
The fact that this fraud has been perpetrated against the American public shows the complicity of all the media involved, because I do think you need a David Rockefeller FEMA Center in the United States where all of these top media people can spend some time together for intercourse among themselves.
Christopher, why don't you get together and round them up?
We can give them David Rockefeller buttons. Thank you for the service to enable us to mass murder people around the world over the many years and to hide our deception. Thank you very much. May you rot in hell.
That's why I'm saying, why don't we go round them up together? We can do it all as the 3%ers, as I call us. Go out there, grab them, go put them in their own camps, and let them enjoy each other's company, so to speak. But I wanted to move on. You brought up something earlier, Christopher, about the free energy, and I'll tell you, because for one, I experimented, of course, with because when I found out about Stan Meyer and saw his water car, I jumped into wanting to develop this with me and my friends, and to find out it does work. Now, what happened was, when, of course, the fraud was committed in the banking industry through this manufactured crisis in 2008, of course, everybody's business fell apart, including my own, losing a better part of 65% of my income, which stopped me from going on and continue with the experiments. But I'll tell you right now, Christopher, I have 3 prototypes sitting in my garage, okay? They sit there, and they produce hydrogen just fine. Very simple process, yet it's kept. And that's just one out of many of these advanced and exotic technologies they have kept from us.
Yeah, there's so many examples. You look back, have you ever heard of John Searle? I think was a British inventor who was inventing flying UFO-type objects back in the 1920s, 1930s in England.
Yeah, I think it was the 1940s and 50s, and yes, very much so. I actually was going to start doing some experimentation with that, but it's very costly.
Yeah. I believe a lot of the UFOs we're seeing is their technology. Like, I think they have very advanced technology that we're not aware of. All kinds of things in healthcare, in addition to energy and.
Oh, yeah, well, I agree with you. I'll give you another example. As far as the medical industry side of things is concerned, the suppression technology, my mother came down with lymphomic cancer, very large tumors underneath her chin, the back of her jawbone, underneath her abdomen, very large cancerous tumors. So when I discovered this, I went online, started looking for the alternative answer, and I found it. And it's through microfrequencies, which when programmed correctly, eliminate the cancer with the good cells. It was that simple.
Yeah. And what have these people done? The Rockefellers over the years have systematically taken over the medical associations, the medical education, and they've suppressed all these alternatives. They give doctors don't even get basic nutritional knowledge, yet alone understanding of all the varied cures. And then they kind of have to provide enough prescriptions and order all these tests and drugs for people. And you see how the pharmaceutical mafia is so tied into, they took control over of medicine. And so we've got all these unnatural drugs which just cause so many problems among the population. I mean, they say medicine is the 3rd biggest killer in the United States. and I'm sure it I mean,
well,
we're
it's got to
being
be at
murdered
least
by
that
the
high.
poisons sprayed
It's got
on
to be at
people.
least,
Like
yeah,
this Alzheimer's issue is huge. And we're going to see this more and more because they've been spraying us for 50 years with all this aluminum.
You're right. Because I started doing a study into this myself. And when I started looking at when they started spraying, and then I looked up the increase in Alzheimer's when they started spraying, it rose by 10% in 5 years, which is just absurd. I mean, okay, they're spraying aluminum dioxide, sulfur dioxide, barium, and God knows what else, and all of a sudden, but from when they started spraying till present day, Alzheimer's disease has gone up 10%. Now you're going to tell me that that's just a coincidence? I don't think so.
Oh, and I mean, I just read in our local paper it's doubled in the last 10 years, but I don't even believe that. I believe it's way, way higher than that because I don't believe their statistics either. Because it's a gain enough. Like even when they tell us how many people in the world, and because they have this philosophy, we have to reduce the world's population to have a sustainable environment. But we always are relying on all their statistics. And
I agree with you.
People can't be trusted in anything.
Christopher, I agree with you 100%. I mean, for instance, if people would just realize or even just look at this just on a broad basis, that 2/3 of the people on this planet live on a coastline. What about all the interior land that is not being used but can be used for food, can be used for housing, to have some sort of equitable and comfortable life? But no, they won't talk about that.
No, because you have a group of psychopaths who run your country who want to create starvation and food and economic problems for your populace through creating unnatural disasters and destroying the food supply. And now they want to charge people for growing celery or herbs or things like this. They don't. We've got to understand these people don't want to protect us or provide for our health or our wealth. These people want to destroy us, have greater and greater control and restrictions on anything we might do, anything natural that might still occur in the world.
Right. Well, also I would say that because they are so sadistic, evil, and satanic in thought process and their ritualistic numerological system that these people use, there's a lot of inner fighting amongst themselves of who has hierarchical control too, which that might also lead to their demise in accordance with what is taking place, this Great Awakening.
I pray so, and I pray so. I hope people in their ranks will turn, because a lot of people, I talk about the sheep and the goats sometimes. The sheep are the sheep people who turn their TV on, watch men play games with balls, or watch some imaginary Hollywood thing. And the goats are people who get entwined into this system, and you don't know what you're getting into. And you get deeper and deeper into it, and then there's kind of no way out. So
and
a lot
also,
of people, like they say, Satan has a hierarchy of servants.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
also,
many of these people, if they had the opportunity to turn, they would. And I think we can bring about a resolution of this. I would hate to see there being massive violence and murdering these people. Like, we've got to change that cycle of human history. These people need to be put into camps where they're rehabilitated. If you just murder them, they just linger on the afterplanes and come back and repeat the same thing. They'll never change, because I believe this has gone on for decades, and we've been parts of it for decades.
I think it's gone on for millennia. But what I was going to say also, that with this hierarchical structure that they've created, they don't realize that the lie is different at every level, because they are all lying to each other. And then there's the illuministic master sitting on top and pulling all the strings.
Yeah. And imagine, like, it's like we're being sprayed. Like, just take the chemtrails. Here's clearly criminal evidence. It occurs on a day-to-day basis all across our country. Where are the police? Where's the U.S. military to protect the citizenry of the United States while they're being attacked by poisons, sprayed with poisons, chemical warfare from above? And they're off looking for Osama bin Laden and seizing foreign lands for the international bank. It's so disgraceful. And you see now the American Navy is going to be conducting all these tests of experimental weapons on the West Coast, the East Coast, and the Gulf. They're destroying your country. You see, you got 1,000 biological weapons labs in the States. Who do you think they're designing biological weapons for? I mean, they're against the Geneva and other accords anyway. Who do you think these weapons? Well, Americans, you've got karma to pay. And if Americans don't turn this around, you're going to be victim of these people yourself. I mean, you are now. You got millions of people who have lost their homes because of the bank fraud of these people. And then they steal trillions and trillions of dollars from the American people. You put your family and children into such a deep path, they'll be debt slaves the rest of their life. Whereas if we bring about justice, we put all these people in jail, eliminate the national debt, eliminate it in a month.
And you're
people
right, Christopher.
I often hear people on shows saying, well, how can we live with this? How can we make some changes? No, you've got to restore justice. These people, this is a terrorist organization. They've mass murdered tens of millions of people. They've massive public deception. These people all need to be tried internationally and the truth exposed around the world of what they've done. And that's the only way, in my view, there is a future. Otherwise, people think, how can, I'll take oregano oil and I'll live a little bit longer. No, that's good too,
But it's the quality of life.
Yeah, live to be slaves, live to have your grandchildren brought up and inoculated from birth and in out of the family and just in institutions and introduced to all kinds of pedophilia and such from their birth. It's just terrible. These people are such, their depravity kind of surpasses anything a person could imagine.
It certainly does, Christopher.
It's
There's
a
no
nightmare
question about
world.
it.
The American dream became the American nightmare. And we've got to turn it around because American people are like, I have many friends in America and I've always admired America so much and, feel one with you. This isn't just an American issue. I'm facing it here in Canada and everyone around the world is facing it in their own countries. And if we just awaken people to the overall structure of the situation and demand that our governments who have colluded with these people are also criminally responsible. Like I look at the Canadian Prime Minister. He's guilty of accessory after the fact to the mass murders of 9/11 because he knows 9/11 wasn't done by Muslims. He knows that.
Correct.
So he's accessory to mass murder. He's guilty of war crimes involving Canadian troops in wars based on lies, which are war crimes. He's involved in treason. He's involved in criminal racketeering. And that's just Canada. It's the same in other countries. These people need to be brought to justice.
You are 100% right. But I was going to say earlier that the slavery started a long, long time ago, at least in this country, when the Federal Fake Express Reserve was enacted right along with the IRS. That's when the real slavery started. And by the way, we have always been in a depression. There were no booms, there were no busts. We've always been in a depression and just financially speaking here, when the Federal Fake Express Reserve came into existence, our money actually still had value. But if you look at inflation, 1913 to 2011, the money has been devalued so much that it's worth just a few cents of what it was originally worth. So they perpetrated this hoax on my people, your people, and I was going to say, and just real quick, this is not a country issue. This is a human being issue. This is worldwide. It's the people, us, the common people, the ones who work and try and have some sort of life, compared to these elitists who are trying to destroy our way of life to have their total wealth and our total surf.
Yeah, yeah. This is Lord of the Rings tale.
It certainly is, and it seems to be getting worse some days and getting better other days. You know, like Brad had brought up earlier about Ron Paul. I think we do have a real shot. Ron Paul has always stood by his guns. He knows what this country's founded on. This country was based on a republic, not a democracy, because democracy is nothing more than saying fascist or Marxist or Soviet style Leninism. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. It's all for the mega corporations, nothing for the middle class, and it's the middle class worldwide who have been able to, build their countries, not these multinational companies who just simply take and destroy. And this is how they part of through, of course, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Warburgs and so many others that I can't even name right now. But they colluded with these multinational corporations in order to take down the infrastructure of all our countries. It's happened in Canada. It happened in Mexico. Look at the state that they've been reduced to. And then the largest country that they needed to take out was the United States in order to bring this total fascist government with this total tyrannical control. And then there's this depopulation, slow, soft kill method that they've finally implemented here within the last, 12, 13 years?
Well, it brings us back to we're so fortunate we have the internet, and this has become the media of our day, and you can talk on such a high level as you are right now, whereas if you did that 10 years ago, we would have been describing Haldol for you.
And
now we realize, like it's coming together. People, I know more and more people, and people are beginning to get it. They realize something's really fundamentally wrong here, and I don't see any option for us. It just has to be a growth of that movement and a turning of people in their heart. I remember once I had an encounter with a media person, and I said to her, "You must be ashamed of what you do," out of my disgust. And you know what she said? "We are." Because, you see, in a way, those people go into the media. They don't go into the media. They want to be reporters and investigative reporters and serve their fellow citizens. They go in with good intentions, but then over time they're bought out and they lose their soul, and then they realize if they speak out, they're just out of a job. There's so many people who could turn. One person in the media once told me that if we could bring about what I had been saying about taking back the media, he said, we'd have a job again.
You're absolutely right. Hey, Christopher, we're coming up on a break here real quick, but I want to get into some of the positive aspects of all this in the last half hour, because we really touched on all the horrors of what these monsters have created. I want to talk on some of the positive aspects of how, the 0 point, especially, we can get right back into that and see if we can come up with a few more ideas to help this along. Anyway, this is Robert Pino. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. You're listening to Christopher Holmes. We'll be right back after this break. Stick with us.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. and gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
Prisoner, rise and answer my question. Oh, crap.
Yeah, it's a little dark in here, ain't it, Clink, now that you've busted the light?
Where are you?
Right in front of you.
Yes. Now, where have you hidden the wax figurine of the Kaiser?
I've got no bloody idea what you did with your wax figurine, and I don't care.
You are the prisoner.
That's right, and as such, I expect some answers out of you. Now, where did you put my stash of freeze-dried food?
We, ate it.
You ate it?
It was quite good.
I'm sure it was. I'll have you know that was freeze-dried food from the freeze-dry guy. That food rehydrates faster, stores longer, is nutritionally superior to, and tastes better than any other long-term storage food available. Now, let me out of here.
If you could get us some more, perhaps we could negotiate.
Yeah, perhaps I'll just confiscate your keys, Klaus, and let myself out the front door.
But wait.
I'm busy. Get your own supply of delicious long-term storable food by dialing 866-404-3663 or visit freezedryguy.com.
Okay, I want to address the skeptics listening to talk radio. You hear multiple commercials on products that make you feel better and help you lose weight, but you don't believe it. Companies come and go. People, I understand. You really are desiring a product that works, but you're tired of getting burned with substandard quality, gimmicks, 3 to 6 month get-involved contracts. Life Change Tea is different. I speak for Life Change Tea because I lost 25 pounds, lowered my blood pressure, and blood sugar levels. I sleep well at night, knowing Life Change Tea customers are receiving real product that works, customer service, and customer satisfaction. So here's my spiel. Test us, try us, and receive results. And if you don't try us, that's okay. And if you do, you'll be a happy tea customer getting healthy. So order now. Call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Or you can log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. In my opinion, you won't be sorry.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pino, and we have Chris Holmes, an incredible guest psychologist who woken up to the fraud of 9/11, so many other things as we all have, excuse me. And for anybody who'd like to call in, this is the last half hour of the show. The number is 1-888-747-1968. Please call in and participate in this incredible conversation we're having. And I left off just before the break that I wanted to get into the lighter side of things, and I wanted to bring up the 0 point, the zero.
Concept.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Now that's a very complex subject, as you know. But there's one element in my work that's unique in compared with other people who are talking about 0 point energies and technology. Well, and my work is based on Madame Blavatsky, H.P. Blavatsky, and I've written a book about the physics and metaphysics of the secret doctrine. And one of the basic ideas in Blavatsky, any living being has a first point of unfoldment, which is called a 0 point center. Just as our scientists believe our universe emerged out of a singularity, 10 to the minus 33 diameter centimeters, an infinitesimally small point, and they believe the universe grew within, without, from what I would call a 0 point. If the universe ever collapses, it would collapse without, within, back to a 0 point, which is what Blavatsky explained happened a century ago. Modern scientists think the universe will just keep expanding, but mystics say living universes emerge from point sources. They expand within, without. They eventually contract back without, within to a 0 point again, then pass into what seems on being.
So,
what I'm saying is that
human I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Is that a repetitive process?
Yes.
Okay.
And it would be through different levels of it, because you could have different lives and withdraw back to the 0 point and then come back embodied again in a different lifetime. And then this is the hierarchical, because what I might hear at a 0 point on one level, as you pass through the 0 point, it would open up a whole new world to you, which that might then further be the product of a higher dimensional 0 point. So there's multidimensional existence, and 0 points are like portals between levels of existence. But in my work, I emphasize that a human being, you have a 0 point center within your heart, and there's a higher dimensional physics to the human heart. And this is what makes possible psychical phenomena after multi-lives and so on, is that there's a higher dimensional physics. And we ourselves embody, we are free energy technology. It is within our heart, the physics of our heart, that we ourselves are free over unity devices until life withdraws into the heart at moments of death, which is what the Dalai Lama explains happens. All the vitality gathers out your hands and your legs. It gathers into all the channels, and they all gather again. That's the indestructible drop with the heart. Then the soul leaves the body.
Right. So, well, on just the physical level, we are a bioelectrical chemical reaction.
And the electromagnetic volume of the heart is 5,000 times greater than the electromagnetic volume of the mind in the head. So, taking a human being as a quantum system, the center is the heart, not the head. And Blavatsky explains in the Sikh doctrine, she says, the suns expand and contract from their own heart, which embrace infinitude. So the idea is that my writing and work, like this is my real area of expertise. I didn't want to have to fight the New World Order. I'm really interested in like higher dimensional physics. My most recent article that I had accepted in a peer-reviewed journal was an alternate model of the higher dimensional structure of human existence. And I go into explaining a higher dimensional holographic physics, the human heart, and how it could be working. It's an alternate model of which is based on the esoteric teachings, but relating it to newest ideas about black hole physics, information process. So my work gets into very complex and subtle studies such as this. One concept I explore a lot is the idea you are a star. And Alice Crowley, who I know was a magician who turned to the black side, but still he had some profound teaching. And he says the basic principle of magic is every man and woman is a star. What that means is that there is a divine source element in every living being, a God spark, called different things. Kabbalah, it's called sparks of holiness. So every human being has such a God spark within them. And that exists in higher dimensional space. And it has certain spin properties, and what that does is it precipitates different materials to materialize out of the ether. There's 7 levels to the ether. Height space is 7-dimensional. And then the universe is 7-dimensional. 7 is the number of the divine mystery, according to, it's in all the esoteric teachings. But these are ideas that haven't been understood at all by people, like the basic laws of 3 and 7 mystical teachings are very, very profound. It is said that God is first 1, then 3, then 7. divided by a prism gives you a spectrum of 7 colors. And the universe, I would say, is structured on that principle.
Well, would you also say that would also involve the chakras?
Well, yeah, the 7 chakras in the human being. And take the chakras. See, here among the chakras, it's said that most people are ruled by the 3 lower chakras that related to the motives of money, sex, and power. The first level of awakening is the awakening of the heart chakra. And the symbol of the heart chakra is the Star of David with a central point. And then there are 3 chakras above the heart chakra. Now, if you symbolize these, you use a triangle for the 3 chakras above the heart chakra as an upward turn triangle, a downward turn triangle for the lower 3. You put a dot in the center for the heart chakra. You have a Star of David with a central point. See, Israel uses the Star of David, but there's no central point. That's because they've lost their souls. The mystery of the Star of David is the 7th central point, which is the 0-point center. Divine element that's at the center of it all. And that's missing in the Rothschilds and in Israel. These people are soulless inside. So
or I was going to say, do you think maybe that they removed that from the understanding of that Star of David and just another piece of the esoteric technologies they've taken away from us?
Well, even without the central point, it's an ancient symbol of the mysteries, and it goes back. It was in Hinduism. It's a symbol for the heart chakra. It was in ancient Egypt. So it's not Hebrew. It's not Jewish symbol in the first place. It was called Vishnu's shield. Okay, so it's an ancient symbol beyond the Rothschild clan. But also I'm trying to explain what I think is this profound mystery of the 7th point at the center of the heart chakra, because I believe that this is a higher spiritual principle, and this is establishing the self within the heart, is that 7th central point. This is something I go into in my teaching and how my teaching compares with the teaching of the Illuminati, because they don't have the central point. And I think the empowerment of human beings is through the central point, is the heart chakra.
Well, you just made me realize something. I was just thinking about what you were saying, and that you were saying if you were looking at the 7 rays of light through a prism, and then we talked about the chakras, which each have their own individual light source. But if you were to turn the prism a different way, you would get one single light source. So I find that really fascinating, because the 7 are 1.
Yeah.
And then I was just listening to your relation of 1, 3, and 7.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to put this together, and I find that extremely fascinating.
It's very, very valuable, and it has application in all different areas. But it does apply to the chakra, you see, because you have the heart chakra is the central one. That's where you have what the Dalai Lama calls the indestructible drop, or the yogi calls it the jiva atma, the individual self, self-illuminating like the sun. The heart is the sun of the body, and this divine spark in the heart, connected to the heart, is the life and light principle within the human being, because consciousness is like light. And it's because we have this inner light that we can then be aware of what's on our mind and our emotions. We can be aware of all these things because there's that inner light source, and it all connects to the heart. If you awaken in the heart, you experience states of illumination and enlightenment. And then what can happen is those energies, you can bring it up and you can open or manifest using the higher chakra. But the heart way is kind of the gateway between the lower 3 levels and the higher.
I'd certainly like to believe myself that I think maybe I maybe have achieved that. I certainly am very well awakened and aware of my surrounding as myself, my higher being, my soul conscious mind. So I
think
guess
there's many, many levels of awakening and realization to it too. And even you may realize and awaken to it at times, but then most of the time you forget about it. But if a person becomes awakened in the heart is what's called the bliss sheath, the size of a small grape. And if your consciousness is established in the bliss sheath, then you experience that inner bliss and illumination constantly through your day, and you're established in that state. And then all cares and worries and fears wash away. But you may have glimpses of states like this, as I've had at times, but then you're not established in it. So it's not a constant state in you. So there are many levels and subtleties to these processes.
Well, and I definitely understand exactly what you're saying, because I have gone through that. I do go through that routinely, where I'll have that blissful, melting away of all the problems or any type of anxieties. And I really don't have any anxieties. I'm pretty as far as consciously, I'm pretty nonchalant about a lot of things, Christopher. So, I definitely hear what you're saying when you say about, that peace, that peacefulness, blissfulness that comes over you.
Yeah. They say, you've heard the expression, the peace that passeth all understanding. That is said to be the lowest of 5 levels of the soul life in the body. And people can learn to go into that state, which is very valuable to do. And, it's valuable. See, I believe when an infant is born, if you look at an infant, they're kind of gleeful. There's a gleefulness about an infant, because I believe their consciousness is still centered in the bliss sheath in the heart. But it's only as they grow up that they form this false self system, the personality and ego in the mind, and they learn to hold in and suppress their feelings. So what happens over time? They hold their breath more and more, because your soul life is connected to your breath, because God breathes into man a living soul. The way the spirit connects to the body is through the breath, the oxygenation of the body. The consciousness in the human being isn't just up in the head like the scientists think. It's a complete fraudulent idea. If I put my consciousness in my left hand, my blood flows to my left hand. It gets warm and then it engorges it. I can be conscious all through my body. Consciousness isn't just up in the head. And modern psychology, they don't think there's a psychology to the heart. They think that, the emotions involve the limbic system and subcortical structures. So how many people go home and tell your wife, I love you with all my head?
That's a good point.
Say, I'll have to think about that. I don't know. I think you need to get your head examined. See, people don't think there's no psychology of the heart in modern times. They think the heart is just a pump. No, it's not. The heart is our vital energy and life center. It's connected most intimately to your soul. We have to awaken this feeling of the heart. I actually tap on my heart at different points in my day to bring my feeling back to that area of my body. And I work with breathing, because people, when they go into fear and stress and anxiety, they hold their breath. If people are depressed, they don't breathe anymore. So the way you have to overcome anxieties and fears is reestablish deep, full breathing, where you breathe into your lower body and not just your upper chest. How people learn to breathe.
Right, because the meditation allows those chakras to open up and go to that the conscious heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I would advise people in meditation, be aware in your breath, because your breath life is connected to your soul life. And there's 5 levels to the soul life, and each of those is connected to a different level of the breath. This is all in Kabbalistic.
And of course, it brings you to a higher consciousness as well.
Yeah, that's related to higher consciousness.
Go ahead.
It's a shame. It's a shame in much of the truth movement, people too willingly dismiss Kabbalistic study and Blavatsky and Crowley. Like, they dismiss these kind of mystics and thinking that those teachings are all like satanic and Luciferian, which is a real shame. Like, I've studied Kabbalah, and it's an amazing model of the structures of existence and so on. It's not, Kabbalistic teachings in themselves are deeply, deeply profound. But it's only these people. It's just like they take a cross and they turn it upside down, or they take a pentagon and they turn it upside down. They distort everything and use it for ill purposes. So people don't have appreciation anymore of Kabbalistic teachings. They're unbelievably profound.
As well as what Hitler did with the swastika, which he simply inverted it.
Yeah.
And changed the idealism from something being very good to a presentation of being something very sadistic and evil.
Exactly. And it was an ancient Hindu symbol of the four elements and the wheel of nature. Yeah.
It's simply incredible what, you just brought up a point that, the Truth movie brought up, that they're only looking at the physical aspects of this movement that's taking place, but they're not looking at the subconscious, their own subconscious movement of where they need to go and be through this whole process. So we do not come out with some sort of, violent, bloody revolution, because if they would just simply realize that these control powers and control structures actually have no power, we just simply gave it to them because of the physical enactment that they, through this illusionary practice that they basically hoaxed upon us. If they would look at it from that aspect, if we simply step back, like you said, don't pay taxes for a week, the whole system would fall apart.
Yeah, I think we need more. I think we need to bring them to justice. I think that's the only way out of our dilemma. But all these movements are good, don't buy, don't comply, ask why. I agree, that's a valuable movement. All of these they're all bits of the puzzle, and somehow it's got to come together, and I think we've got to go from the 3% to the 7% to come more massive awakening.
Right, but exactly, and I agree with it, but that was my point. If we use our higher conscious, bring ourselves to a higher consciousness, we could see right through the scam and simply have to do nothing, and would fall in on itself, because we would be all vibrating at a much higher frequency.
Yeah, if we could all, the masses could do that. I think there's other things individuals can do. Like, I think, I know what I try to do when I do certain ritual and attempt to do white magic is, they say, how people talk about your thoughts create your reality. Well, another part of Kabbalistic teaching is that it's not just the thought, it's also the heart, and they have a special name for the heart, spelled T-Z-U-R, Thur. And the heart is that which gives formation to thought. So really, it's not just envisioning things with your mind, but then giving that the power of the heart to bring about these changes. And I think we need to, I know I try to beseech higher powers to, like, I ask that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven, like to bring down and help anchor higher powers, because I believe we need that help to change this and turn this. And so, I do believe that meditation and prayer and supplication to higher powers is useful in our time.
Well, I agree with you. When I meditate and I try and go into my higher consciousness, I put love and peace and wisdom out to the world and to the universe, because that's what I wish to project onto the world, which in turn want projected back onto me. But Christopher, we're running out of time. We only have a few minutes left, so I want you to give out your information where they can get your books, your website. This has been an incredible conversation, and I would absolutely love to have you back on the show, because I know this goes much, much deeper. We've only really scratched the surface of what we've talked about everything tonight.
And we've covered so much, too, Robert. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Thank you. I'm available anytime you
get hold of me, and I'll be back.
Well, I thank you so much, and I want you to give out all your information where people can get your books. Go to your website and really learn and delve deep into what you've been talking about.
So my website is at www, 0 point, spelled out in letters, no cap, .ca for Canada. That suffix is for Canada. And you can buy my books directly from me. I have a special on all 5 of my books signed, $100 anywhere in North America at the moment. And then my books are available through Amazon, so they can be ordered anywhere in North America. They're there within days. And I've got the book, The Heart Doctrine, which is about the mystical views of the origin and nature of human consciousness, which is what I regard as my most important work.
And that is your latest book, correct?
No, my latest book is called 0 Point Teachings, and it explains some of the physics of the higher dimensional 0 point structures that I've touched on. The whole concept of you are a star, what that means, and goes into Kabbalah and Greek doctrine and holographic physics.
Well, then I think I would recommend that everybody get all 5 of your books, because it looks like it goes in progression, from what I understand. But Christopher, again, I want to thank you so much for being on this program, and I will definitely get a hold of you, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show here in a month or two down the road, because this has been absolutely fascinating. I've just always been extremely fascinated with higher consciousness, and now you're talking about the heart consciousness, which is I've never looked at that concept, and I find it extremely intriguing and enlightening, because I've known about the chakras and, of course, meditation and, bring yourself to a higher state. But it's absolutely incredibly fascinating what you've talked about.
I think you'll find it just ties together things you already know exactly as you've been describing. Thank you, Robert. I really appreciated being on.
Same here, Christopher. You take care of yourself. I'll call you soon. Everybody, that was Christopher Holmes. Extremely enlightened man with a lot of knowledge and lots of information. We were going to have him back on for sure. Just an incredible guest. Anyway, this has been the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I've been your host, Robert Pepino, and hopefully you join us tomorrow evening, where we will have another fantastic guest. And I believe we have 2 on for tomorrow night, and I'll tell you about it tomorrow evening. Anyway, everybody, take care of yourselves. Be safe, be happy, be healthy. See you tomorrow night. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. Have a wonderful evening.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. And gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
Prisoner, rise and answer my question. Oh, crap.
Yeah, it's a little dark in here, ain't it, Clink, now that you've busted the light?
Where are you?
Right in front of you.
Now, where have you hidden the wax figurine of the Kaiser?
I've got no bloody idea what you did with your wax figurine, and I don't care.
You are the prisoner.
That's right, and as such I expect some answers out of you. Now, where did you put my stash of freeze-dried food?
We ate it.
You ate it?
It was quite good.
I'm sure it was. I'll have you know that was freeze-dried food from the freeze-dry guy. That food rehydrates faster, stores longer, is nutritionally superior to, and tastes better than any other long-term storage food available. Now, let me out of here.
If you could get us some more, perhaps we could negotiate.
Yeah, perhaps I'll just confiscate your keys, Klaus, and let myself out the front door.
But wait.
I'm busy. Get your own supply of delicious long-term storable food by dialing 866-404-3663 or visit freezedryguy.com.
Okay, I want to address the skeptics listening to talk radio. You hear multiple commercials on products that make you feel better and help you lose weight, but you don't believe it. Companies come and go. People, I understand. You really are desiring a product that works, but you're tired of getting burned with substandard quality, gimmicks, 3 to 6 month get-involved contracts. Life changed